Yeah, so the last time we spoke was about your work up until 21-22 before you went to St. Ida's. So what was it like moving to St. Ida's? What is St. Ida's?
St. Ida's was a psychiatric hospital in North County Dublin, and when I left Maynooth College to go to St. Ida's was a complete life-changing experience. St. Ida's kitchen was a huge, big, massive kitchen with big boilers and a big rotating oven. You could get into it. Literally, everything was antiquated. The food was horrendously bad. There was 1,500 patients had to be fed 3 times a day.
4 for supper as well, right?
For supper as well, 4 times a day. So when I went there was a man called Cumnig. He was the manager, and there was a girl called Rosaline was the assistant manager, and I went as the other assistant manager. But about 2 years after I went, he left and I took over as the manager, and I stayed there for 40 years. And St. Ida's, we eventually
40 or 41?
Well, just over 40 years. Wow. And eventually we got the food used to go in aluminium boxes. It was absolutely dreadful.
What kind of stuff would you be serving?
It was basically meat, vegetables and potatoes, and that was it. And there was eggs. They got eggs every day. Someone fried 360 eggs every day and started about 7 in the morning. So I don't know who got the first egg or the last egg, but eventually we did away with all that, and we got food trolleys that were delivered into the ward, which contained the meat, the vegetables, the potatoes, the gravies, the diets, the different requirements. And then years went on, we got more modern trolleys called Colston trolleys, and then we went to what they call today, what's the name of them? They're a Swedish made heated food trolley.
Were you just serving patients, or were you serving it?
Then we had staff. We did the staff canteen. That was 3 sittings, 12, 1 and quarter to 2, and there was about 150 people come in for that every day.
Wow.
We did breakfast in the morning, and then at night time a woman came in and she did the evening meal for the staff coming on duty.
A woman? A chef?
No, she was a domestic.
What's that mean?
She was just an ordinary woman that did domestic work, and the food was left and she served it. And then we started all over. It was 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Wow. And it was we had different occasions. At Easter we did Easter cakes and things like that. Christmas, every ward got a party, and we the patients all got Christmas cakes, mince pies, puddings, everything. We give them everything they want.
Patients didn't care, right? They're all mad.
No, they weren't mad. The mad people were the ones serving them.
And what you started off there as what?
I started off as the assistant manager.
To?
Assistant catering superintendent, I was called.
To who? Assistant to who?
A man called Cumnig. He was Austrian, but he
Austrian?
Yeah.
Spoke German?
Well, I did never hear him speak German. Eventually he left, and I don't know whatever became of him.
How long were you his assistant?
About 1.5 years.
And then you became?
I got the job as the manager. I applied for the job. I didn't intend staying there, but I ended up staying there.
Did you hate it?
No, I didn't. No. I liked it. I liked the place and I liked the people.
Did you intend on going?
I don't know. I never really thought. I kept thinking I'd go somewhere and go, but I'll do it next week.
And did it get bigger or?
No, and then eventually the numbers went down and down and down, and it became, at the end, when I left, there was only about 150 patients still in the hospital. But today there's no residents in the hospital at all. They're just they're outside units and daycare centres. But we also started Meals on Wheels, and I started out by doing 4 Meals on Wheels to ex-nurses, and at the peak of it, we were doing 1,000 Meals on Wheels a day, 5 days a week, serving places like Portrand, Donabate, out as far as Howth, and Skerries, Rush, Lusk, Donabate, all those places, every day, Monday to Friday. Today they even supply food to the Beaumont Psychiatric Unit in Beaumont Hospital. Yeah.
Beaumont have their own kitchen.
Yeah, but they wouldn't supply food to the psychiatric unit.
Because it has to be mulched up.
No, because they just didn't want to do it. And it was a mess because the person who was negotiating it at the start negotiated it all wrong, and the management in Beaumont just wouldn't accept it.
So what's it like travelling to Port Rand from Skerries back in the early...
In the early days I didn't even have a car. I used to go on the train.
Right.
And you'd get off the train, you meet someone going in, you get a lift down, or you get the bus, and then at night you'd get a lift back to the train. Then I got a car, and then I wasn't married when I went there first, and then it was good. The pay wasn't great, and the pay was never good until maybe the latter years when the pay got better, but it wasn't good. But you worked Saturdays and
Sundays. What level did you start off at?
You I can't remember the exact amount. You started out. What boosted your pay was working Saturdays, Sundays, and bank holidays.
Yeah.
And then you were on increments, so you every year you got a bit more and a bit more and a bit more till it went to the top rate.
Right, yeah.
So I spent 40 years in Portland. I liked it. It was good. There was good people in it.
What did you do there? Like buy food or?
I bought everything. We did all the ordering. We did all the food. I was on committees for buying food, user groups that we met out in Brendan or in St Brendan's or out in Cherry Orchard, and we had contracts. We made contracts for food, for different things. We made contracts for beef, for pork, for lamb, for chickens, for vegetables, for dry goods. We made contracts for everything.
What's the maddest thing that ever happened in St Edith's?
I went to work on it. I was at a meeting one day up in up at the boardroom, and the boardroom looked out onto the entrance into the car park at the front.
I know where it is. Yeah.
And I was
near the library.
Yeah, I was, and you could, if you looked out the boardroom, you could see everybody going up and down, the buses coming and turning.
Yeah.
And the next thing, I was sitting looking out the window because there was a union meeting, and the union fellow was being a bit of a pain in the arse, and Seamus Murphy was talking to him. I wasn't really interested in him.
Seamus Murphy was?
He was the hospital manager. He's since died. Lovely man.
So he dealt with the unions. Yeah.
Well, he was dealing with this particular, and I was involved in, and Robert was with me. He was my assistant manager. And the next thing, the secure car pulled up to bring money into the accounts office, and the next thing, a car, black BMW, pulled out. A man jumped out, pulled the security man to the ground, stuck a double-barrel shotgun to his head, and shouted, "Give me that beep beep money." And I'm sitting watching this, and I said to Seamus, there's a fella been robbed out here with at the end of a gun. And the union fella said to me, "Don't be making fun of things." I said, "It's not fun. Look, he is doing it. Somebody needs to ring the police." So they got away with the money, but what they did was they went down the back of the children's unit, down onto a narrow road at the beach where they had another car. They jumped into that one and they sped off towards Malahide, and the police put a roadblock at Donabate, but they were long since gone.
Yeah.
Now another day I was sitting in the office, and they used to have a bank came to cash the checks for the staff, and I was sitting in the office and I heard all this commotion, and I looked out the office door, and here's these three fellas running up and someone running after them, and somebody runs in and shouts to me, "They're after robbing the fucking bank." And they did. And they went off. They ran down to the sea. They had an inflatable boat, and they went over into Howth with the money.
Wow!
And they never caught them.
Never got them.
No. So that was two of the most extraordinary things ever happened. The one, I stood at the front door the day that Pope John Paul came to.
John Paul went to St. Edith's?
No, he went to Phoenix Park,
yeah.
But the big Aer Lingus jet came right over the top of the hospital with the two Air Corps jets escorting it in, and I stood watching it.
It was 87, right?
1987, yeah. So
Unreal.
Yeah, there was a lot of changes were done in Portrand. It was today now. It's a preserved building, and they're doing a whole lot of things, and they're building a new kitchen. But we had to close down the old kitchen at one stage, and we moved into porta cabins for 6 months. But 20 years later, they're still using the porta cabins.
Unreal. 20 years.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
20 years. So, yeah, there was a lot of great characters. Tom Ebbs, Dan Oman, all those fellas. They were all great characters.
Sean Leonard.
Sean Leonard. But they all did their own thing, and I never really bothered them. I just told them to go and do their work, and that was it.
Yeah.
So that was the story of St. Edith's.
And there's a few movies made there, right?
Yeah, they made The Boxer. They made what was the other one? Some Mother's Sons. And they made a good few films. They made bits of films.
Ashes? No.
No, they didn't make Angela's Ashes.
Titanic movies. Is that
They made bits of movies, parts of movies. They made one about at one stage outside the office they had converted the whole backyard into a street, and they had two men, a man running up and being chased by a policeman, and he was shooting a gun at him.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a real gun, like,
Yeah.
but it was the sound of a gun. And yeah, they made a good few movies on it. At one of the movies, one day I went up to watch them, and I was wearing a white coat, and this guy came up who was involved, and he says, "Doctor, would you mind stepping back a bit?" So I didn't tell him.
You always wear a white coat.
We always wore white coats. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they wear white coats today. I don't think they do.
Why did you wear a white coat?
Well, it was part of that. That was part of. You were in the food business, so you wore a white coat,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't wear your civilian clothes, so you wore a white coat.
Mm.
So that was the story of St. Edith's.
40 years.
40 years hard labour. It wasn't bad. I made a living out of it, and I've reared a family out of it, and bought houses out of it, and paid a mortgage, and it paid the bills.
Yeah.
It wasn't all bad, but it's still there today, and it'll be there long when I'm long gone. It'll still there. You can see it. It was a landmark for people leaving Ireland. They would look out the plane and see Portrand Tower, and when they were coming back, they would see Portrand Tower.
Yeah.
And the clock, there was 4 faces of the clock, and they never worked in my time, but they're working today, and they're lit up today, and seemingly at night, if you're coming in on a plane, you can see the clock.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that until...
Some guy used to wind that clock when you first started there, right?
Yeah, a guy used to go up and wind it once a week.
Jesus.
I was up there. I went up there one time. Oh, filthy place, full of pigeon poo and everything.
Yeah.
But they've now repaired it, and the clock's working, and it had north, east, south and west.
No way.
And it had all the counties, 32 counties on little little sculptures all around it, because you could see the 32 counties, they said, from it.
Yeah, probably not from Dublin.
No, well, it was the highest point in Dublin, really. Well, I suppose it wouldn't. Dublin Mountains would have been higher.
The highest point in Fingal is Lambay.
Is it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, that was a good 15 minutes about St. Edith's.
Okay. Well, is that done for